Brandon, thanks for coming in and doing this again. It's been, like 3 months maybe or more?
October possibly?
October? Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a little bit.
A lot of people were asking us to, re-up this whole Sypher Sessions. And,
which is cool.
It's great. And people have reached out to me either, privately or what have you when they're coming into the gym here and saying like, what you guys spoke about is something that like either I've struggled with or, I haven't really wanted to, go out in the public and talk about these things, but it's great that you guys are kind of bringing this to the forefront.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really excited to kind of get back into it.
Yeah, I was motivated to get it started again, so I'm glad that we're here. So,
for sure. So it's just January 10th, 9th?
I believe it's the 10th.
It's something maybe.
Yeah, I think
it's the first week of January. And so, people are usually making New Year's resolutions. We have a lot of new faces here. Just like a typical gym, people are trying to, better themselves.
Sure.
And here's the thing I want to ask you first is New Year's resolutions. Do you think that people start off with like making a New Year's resolution because it's the calendar year, boom, they have like a clean slate that they can start? Or?
Yeah, so that's usually the mentality, at least the feedback that I get, and a lot of the research out there shows that it's kind of that clean slate thing, and that's why too, like even week to week, you'll find a lot of people start things on Mondays, because when you break it down into even weeks, like Monday's that fresh start for a lot of folks, at least as far as the work week goes. So yeah, they see that, it's a new year, it's 2019, I can get fresh, and that way from day one they can say, all year I've been fill in the blanks. Yeah.
Interesting. So like it's been like a decade ago now, I just realized this. I used to write a column for a local newspaper, the Grosse Pointe News.
Yeah.
And I wrote on this very thing, like New Year's resolutions, and my theory on it was that because of the holidays and I guess maybe the guilt from whatever it is you indulged on over the holidays, I feel like that has a huge factor into it.
Yeah, it's almost like a binging and purging.
Yeah.
So like you kind of like, you get all your unhealthy eating out of the way, you visit your family, you're off work for a period of time. Also gives you more time to reflect because you're not working, you've got that time to yourself, you've got that time around family. A lot of folks use that as a way to kind of realign their priorities. Yeah. So especially if they're spending time with loved ones. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's something I never really considered is like, the self-reflection time that's given to you or maybe afforded to you during the holidays kind of gives you that pre-contemplation that we've discussed before.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, I mean, let's kind of dig into some of the stuff that we were going to talk about today. I know you came wanting to talk a little bit about kind of like setting goals and resolutions, and I mean, you could take it.
Yeah, so, well, I know I was coming at you at first, wanting to kind of dig deeper into this idea of the wise mind, because that's something that you had actually talked about previously. And I'm sure we'll dig more into that at some point down the road. But that really got me thinking about this whole New Year's resolution piece, and the timing to me was perfect for that. So, and I'm in that same boat. I have goals for myself that start fresh this year, and some of those are like building on from like the previous year and the work that I've already done. But the discouraging thing for a lot of folks is that the numbers are out there, anywhere between 80 to 90% of New Year's resolutions fail.
Okay.
Right? And that's bad, especially when you're, me coming from social services, like treatment planning is like at the forefront of everything that we do, right? Yeah. So that includes meaningful goal planning. And so we try to front load success as much as we can. So with that said, you have to mitigate those things that kind of inform failure. So we've kind of narrowed down to about 4 different things that kind of inform why goals don't necessarily work out the way that people intend.
Before you go into those 4, I got to ask kind of like a really basic question that I just don't understand. When you say treatment, like what do you refer to? Like what do you mean?
So when I think of treatment, it's more about like people giving me what their goals are. Okay. And collaboratively working on it's almost like a development plan for that. Okay. So I know that I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times when the word treatment's thrown out there, it's to like, usually in substance use or
Right.
some other, like there's a presenting problem.
Yeah.
And then you're prescribing
Yes.
some solution to
That's
that.
what I thought it was.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, and doctors use that term, and that's usually how it's associated.
Yeah.
My concept of that in my role is you're bringing me what you want out of, like, what you want out of your life, your best self.
Okay.
And we're working together on a plan for that.
Can you, I mean, obviously without being too disclosing, like, can you give me like an example? Like, I don't know if you're talking about youth or if you're speaking of whomever that you're, like, adults.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is that I think it applies across the board.
Okay.
So, like, in my professional capacity with youth, the really cool thing with them is that, these are kids who are told of their lives what they should and shouldn't be, right? Or behaviors that they should and shouldn't have, or whatever. Like, especially kids that I'm working with that are in the juvenile justice system,
Yeah.
they did something wrong, and the court wants them to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only context that kid sees, like, treatment. What they learn with working with me is that it's really about, like, enhancing their lives, because what they did is a symptom of something that they're missing out on in life.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. So what we're really working on is, like, enhancing their lives.
Okay.
So they'll come to me with, it may start out with, they have an anger issue.
Yeah.
And that's thrown around a lot in the courts. But what we look at is, like, maybe that kid doesn't have good social support.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't have anybody to, like, vent with or, like, rely on or count on. And that lets them, like, that causes them to, like, ruminate their own stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, we work on building social support.
Okay. And do you kind of point the way as to what maybe it is that they need to be not prescribed, but because, like you said, that they come to you with whatever their goals are, but they got to have some kind of guidance to know what it is they're lacking, or no?
They do, and,
Okay.
and so in my field, that's even easier, because usually the court mandates some specific trajectory of treatment, right?
Yeah.
But again, like, the challenge there is making that meaningful to the kid. And, when we dig deeper into, like, the specifics of goal planning, one of the big points is it meaningful? And if the kid's not on board with what that trajectory is, you can forget it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I take that prescribed direction, like, you need to deal with your anger so that you don't bust out windows anymore.
Yeah.
And say, you really should have more people you can run with, or more things to do in your community, or whatever it is. So it's a really delicate balance between, like, what you're supposed to do and then, like, what you should do to, like, better yourself.
Okay. So, I mean, go ahead and, like, lay it on me, like, what the 4 reasons why people usually don't adhere or stick with their resolutions or goals.
Yeah. So like, as a starting point, I think when people start conceptualizing goals, I think they kind of take a very fortune cookie approach to it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's nervous.
It's very pie in the sky, right? Like, it's I want to be healthy, and I want to be happier, and I want a better life.
So very broad.
Yeah, very broad, and not very, like, you can't really qualify or quantify that, right?
No.
So, like, you're just kind of like, again, I call it fortune cookie goal plan.
Okay, yeah.
It's
yeah.
like, you want a happy life in existence forever, and fortune will come your way. Well, what does any of that mean, right?
Right.
So, like, the goals aren't clear. And then we talked about meaning. You shared with me a video.
Yes.
That's kind of motivationally oriented towards specifically, like, goal planning. And
Yeah.
kind of rebirth and almost rehabilitation.
New year, new me.
Yeah, right. So, and there was a term there, I think it was called motivational intensity, right?
Huh, yeah.
So the more focused your goal is, the more motivated you're going to be, you're going to be to achieve that. So, like, if you've got this pie in the sky, I want good fortune and health goal, how motivated are you to really, like, work towards that, right?
Yeah.
So that's huge. So the more specific you are with your goal, I think the greater motivational intensity you can develop towards reaching it.
Yeah. I think what you were referring to, that one clip, is what is it that pulls you out of bed every day? You need to have the emotional connection to whatever it is, that goal that you would like to attain.
Right.
But specifically define it, like you said. Maybe you have, like, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds, which is a lot. I'm saying like over the course of a year, you need to figure out the steps to get there.
Using that example, that's great, but to me, that's a means to an end, right? The
Right.
losing 30 pounds for what? You know,
Yes.
like what's the point?
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so like what and this actually goes back to my practice with kids, right? So like one of my favorite activities to do with kids, especially when we're developing goals, is close your eyes and walk me through your perfect day. Like if you had no challenges, no barriers, what moves around you? What do you sound like? What do you look like? Like what
That's
are you
interesting.
doing?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I had them walk me through like what their perfect day looks like. So using that weight loss goal, like maybe somebody's really motivated. Like what I hear a lot are adults with kids, especially little kids, and little kids are really hard to keep up with, right? Like, man, if only I didn't have these extra 30, 40 pounds on me, I could keep up with my kids and do more, right? So to me, like that's a much more meaningful goal than I want to lose 30 pounds, because that's just,
Absolutely.
so what, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So, and that's another thing that's kind of like my philosophy, I guess, from a training point of view, is I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to whatever. If you're working out for the vanity reason, oftentimes you're not going to stick with it once you do achieve that goal.
Yeah.
You know, it's if your goal is to lose 30 pounds and you lose 30 pounds, what's going to keep you maintaining that current state? And if it's to look a certain way, I don't know if that's the best thing to keep you motivated, you know?
well, and again, like the more you kind of reverse engineer that, think about, and just throw in that for what, like, I want to lose 30 pounds, for what? So I can look better, for what?
Yes.
Because I'm like on the market, I want to like date somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Like, so we're getting somewhere like that you actually want to achieve. You're probably pretty motivated by that.
Yeah.
Right? So like,
And then for what though?
and then for what? Yeah.
For
Take that as far
you know,
as-
you want to have kids, you want to have a family, and then for what? Like I mean,
Yeah, right.
It's
so you can really run with that.
that also plays with your ideal day too. It's like, okay, your ideal life. What is it that you want to achieve? You know, what does your ideal life look like? Okay, so how are you going to achieve that? That's interesting too, because that's a big reason why I believe that like a lot of young 20-somethings do work out for the way in which they work out.
Yeah.
It's less about, I mean, I'm totally generalizing, but less about the fitness holistic aspect of it, and it's more about the look. And I should say me, because that's how I used to work out. Like, how big are my biceps? How broad are my shoulders? Because I want to look a certain way, because maybe that attracts the other, the person that you're trying to,
Well, and compliments feel good, right?
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
if somebody, I mean, me, I don't consider myself vain, but if somebody says something about like me physically, that makes me feel good. So like there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I think the deeper you get with that goal, like you said, I think the more likely you're going to stick with it, and it's going to be meaningful down the road. So, and kind of the metric that we use for that, especially in social services, we call them SMART goals. So the best way to make goals clear is, so it's an acronym, SMART. It's they have to be specific.
Okay.
So we already talked about that, right? So like not making it this fortune cookie pie in the sky, but really getting down to like what exactly is it that you want to do. It has to be measurable. So like I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to be able to run a 5K or whatever it is. So like it has to be something that you can check off the box, right?
Okay.
It's measurable. It has to be assigned. So like
Hey, what?
so assigned. So let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
So you don't exist in a vacuum, right?
Right.
None of us do. So chances are, for better or for worse, no matter what your situation is with different things, you're there because of some combination of like your stuff and then stuff of people or the environment around you.
Okay.
Right. So so in your goals and in your like recovery journey or whatever it is, however you want to look at it, you're going to bring on board people like for accountability and support, right?
Yeah.
So there's specificity required with that too. So like if you count on your wife for certain accountability purposes, then you'll basically bring her on board with whatever that.
So it's a sign, ASSIGN.
A sign.
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I was like a sign.
No,
a sign of
so-
what? A stop sign?
So you're basically like mobilizing your support.
Okay.
And you're deploying people to certain roles and say, hey, you know, Antoinette, you
Yes.
go to gym, you run during these same days with me. I'm going to run with you to make sure that you push me hard.
Yeah,
whatever it is. So it's and it's situational, right? So you're going to have different people in different spaces.
It's having a sponsor in AA.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So that's the SMA. The R is it's realistic.
Oh yeah.
That's
I mean
because-
that
I don't
makes
know why
sense.
that-
But
I don't know why that avoided me. Yeah, so like, again, with the pie in the sky stuff, if I've got kids that, you know, a lot of them they want to play ball, they want to be rappers, they want $1 million, they want to buy a house for their mom. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's available to you right now.
yeah.
So, if you've lived the last 5 years of your life eating like crap and being mostly sedentary, for you to set a goal of like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds
Yeah.
in 3 months, and I'm going to go to the gym 6 out of 7 days a week,
Yeah.
right? You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
So realistic, right?
Right.
And then the last one is time bound.
That's what I was like when you said quantify or measurable. I didn't know if like the time aspect was something different than the measurable factor.
Right. So you don't just want to leave it hanging. Like,
Yeah.
You want your goal to occur within a certain time frame so that when you get there, you can kind of evaluate where you've been and see like if you've got there, great. How did you get there? And if not, what were the challenges and how can you adjust?
In terms of kind of losing weight, the general rule of thumb is usually 2 pounds per week is really what people are going to be able to realistically maintain or keep off if they're still consistent with their workout and diet.
Yeah.
Anything more than that is not always going to be something that's maintained. And
Can I pull
Yes.
on that for a second
Yeah.
too? Because I feel like we really prop up the opposite of that. Like we celebrate and exploit like these exceptional, like uncommon cases. And we see it all over TV and it's marketing products and things where it's like, lose 100 pounds in 3 months and so on. And we have The Biggest Loser and we have all these shows that like really exploit this these extremes.
Yeah.
So I feel like that sets people up for failure too, because
That's just it.
that's their metric, like that's their reference point. So
Well, I mean, I think any of these things that I'm about to present are good if they're going to jumpstart you. But I have issues with like, I'm going to say the Whole30. I don't want to like slander a real brand, but like something that's like, here's a 6-week challenge and you're going to try to lose as much weight as possible. And look at all these testimonials because how much weight they lost. What is that? That doesn't mean anything to me.
Sure.
I like you said that it's got to be meaningful. It's got to be measurable. That doesn't mean you got fit. It means you just for 6 weeks of your life you just lost this weight. It doesn't really mean anything. So I think, especially in the fitness industry, too often weight and health, like weight loss and health, are like synonyms, and that's just not true.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And again, I like how this parallels with like mental health treatment. Again, to use that word, because the research shows that you have very manualized interventions. So like, whether it's DBT, like strict DBT or strict...
Don't be tripping.
Yeah, right, exactly. Strict DBT, strict CBT, strict all the T's, right?
Yeah.
The research shows that if you, like, highly manualized treatment, if you just stick with that and just stick with fidelity, your outcomes are going to suffer. And that the folks that do the best are the ones that adapt and pull in different pieces of things that suit the person best.
So you got to dumb this down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you said manual something, and then
Manualized,
yes, and then you said fidelity. Like
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I got in my little in-group bubble. What do we call those? Like code words or whatever. But yeah. So anything that's prescribed. So like this is DBT. And we won't talk about anything else other than what's in this book, and we're going to stick to the book because we know that if we stick to this book, or if we stick to Whole30,
like this manual,
if we stick to paleo, or if we stick to whatever, then that's how you get the results. If you deviate from that at all, whether it's to customize it to you or whatever, then we know that's not going to work because we know that this works, right? So in mental health treatment, what we see is that that's actually harmful.
Okay.
Like you actually get worse results from like being really strict
Yes.
and adhering to that
Yeah.
than you do like customizing a plan for somebody based on like where they are.
Syphus is exactly the opposite of manualized. Virtually everything not everything I learned, but like much of what I learned, either becoming a personal trainer through the certification process or getting a degree in exercise science, kind of flies in the face of what Syphus does. You know, it's as much volume as we do and some of the non-traditional movements that we do. This was not really on the radar because it wasn't really something that when I initially came up with it, I wasn't even sure if people were able to keep their heart rate at that high of a level for that long,
Right, yeah.
safely.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, but it's been 10 years, and so I think it's been proven wrong. But if you don't customize it, like you said, customize, it's almost like if you just follow what's always been prescribed and what I don't want to say dogma, but that's essentially what I'm saying is always taught you, not either you said DBT or paleo or whatever the thing we're talking about. If you're stuck in this silo that you're just kind of just stuck in your lane,
right,
and you don't see like what other options there are, or even try something new, I mean, you're never going to push the envelope, and I don't know.
Well, and I think to come full circle back to kind of things that get in the way of achieving goals or even planning goals properly is that people look to those prescribed options as like quick fixes because they don't trust themselves.
Okay.
Right? So if they can say, I put my faith fully in paleo or Whole30 or whatever it is, or CrossFit or whatever, I'm giving it to you, take me, right? It's like, so my success or failure is contingent on whether or not this method works.
Okay.
So you can say, I tried Whole30 and it didn't work, or it did work, right? Because a lot of folks don't trust themselves to kind of navigate that process. So they look to something that's prescribed to say, oh, that's a quick fix for me.
Yes.
So,
or I mean, it's all subjective. Like one thing that works for somebody else may not work for another. But it could also be like an excuse, like I tried going gluten-free, or I tried going without carbs, and that just didn't that didn't work.
Right. It's kind of a diffusion of responsibility thing, right? So that that also kind of empowers that person to cycle on to the next prescribed thing. Well, if Whole30 didn't work, paleo will, or Mediterranean diet will, or something will. Like one of these very narrow ways of like managing my health works for me, and it's a matter of cycling through all of them and deciding which one it is.
Right. And that's what keeps like, not the fitness industry, but like the health industry and books and literature churning, is because it's always something new. It's always something different. Okay, this is the latest.
And we get that in mental health too, and this was more when I was like out of the juvenile justice system, but I would have parents come to me and say, hey, do you specialize in this? Do you specialize in that? And kind of wanting me to give them their like my credentials for like working with their kid and my specializations. I'm like, I'm informed in all these things, but I'm really good at getting to know your kid. Right? Because that's where you start. So, and then going back to yourself and goal planning, like that's your first step. You kind of have to know what your story is. And you kind of have to know what your past successes and failures have been, so you can reorient yourself to what you want in the future. And that's one of the things. So like on this video, there was a point made about like almost like destroying the you that was and like rebirth into the you that is. Like you have to create a new mind. I have some issue with that because like you can't really know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
You're saying I'm going to throw it behind me. Like it doesn't matter where he said that. I think it doesn't matter. where I've been.
I feel like I had the quote somewhere. You can't have a new year without a new mind.
And if he's saying like completely brand new, I understand that. But what he should have said is a new way of thinking, or a fresher way of thinking, or a new approach. It's not like you've like have like memory erased and be like, I'm going to be a new person.
Because part of what happens with that too is like people like, all right, new year, new me. And they fall into those old habits and they're immediately overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh God, here we go again. And I always stress eat when this happens. And here I am stress eating again.
Right.
It's not new year, new you. It's new year, like adjusted you.
Yeah.
Or like you 2.0 or 8.0 or, whatever reiteration of yourself you're at.
Do you like resolutions? I'm just going to ask that. Let's say New Year's resolutions. Are you somebody who's like, that makes them or?
I do.
Okay.
Because it's as part of my self-awareness process.
Yeah.
I like the clean slate idea. It's motivating for me, and because there's a community of folks who are kind of like-minded in that same space and time, I'm more likely to have support and be able to hold other people accountable for goals they might have, and so that's a good time to leverage other people that may be in that same place.
Yeah.
So I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, I mean, not to get too personal,
Sure.
but do you monitor or have you like tracked which resolutions you've stuck with for each year?
No.
Okay. I don't think I would have either if I ever made one. But
no, I haven't. And I feel like, and not for the sake of this podcast, but I feel like this year I'm in a different place in terms of like how I'm conceptualizing my goals, because I feel like I've done a lot of focus on goal planning over the last few months with my clients and in my training and my certification processes and everything else. And I have a lot of expectations for myself this year. So I've tried to be a lot more deliberate about what those goals are and following my own advice when it comes to like how those are measured and how I hold myself accountable. Yeah. So, but historically, no.
I wonder who's actually looked back on December and be like, all right, did I stick with my resolution? Who like really does that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no more than 20% of people, because you have the 80% that fail. So, I mean,
and how do they give out surveys to say, did you stick with your New Year's resolution?
I feel like these days there's like all these cutesy little Pinterest fixes for things. So like maybe somebody has a board somewhere, that there may be multiple dry erase boards posted around the house and people have something written somewhere. So, I mean, people have different ways of, like holding themselves accountable and kind of like formalizing that in some way.
Yeah.
So.
I think it also goes to defining the goal itself. So I guess there are different classifications of goals. If you are, let's say you're giving up alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking alcohol for 2019, or I'm done drinking alcohol. That can be monitored. But if you're saying like, I want to lose 15 pounds, okay, do you want to maintain that? You want to go from 200 to 185 indefinitely? That's a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that goes back to like almost the so what thing, right? So like if you have this larger goal for yourself in mind, so like if that 15 pounds is in pursuit of, wanting to feel like you can perform better on your job, or, getting a higher score on the turf, or keeping it with your kids, you may get to that 15. The whole point of, and this actually goes to smarter goals, where you add an evaluation and review. So
review.
Smarter, right?
I
so
see.
we have a piece that we can tack on. So the idea with that is that once you hit that goal, assuming you hit that goal, you look back and you say, okay, now what, right?
Yes.
So like you get to that 15, you kind of see how that feels, and you either adjust that or you create a maintenance plan.
So now let's go to Syphus.
Yeah.
First off, I mean, we've discussed this before in our other videos, is I feel like oftentimes people come in and they're like, I want to do X, Y, and Z. They have broad goals for themselves. That's the whole scoring system, essentially, is that dangling carrot, that mystical thing that you're trying to chase, but it's keeping you focused and on the path to which you hopefully get to the fitness level that you really desire to be. And by that time, you're already exercise is part of your everyday life without you even really thinking about it. You're just playing this game. Smarter evaluation and review. Yeah. You said that's when you have to. You didn't say redefine, but that's the term I use. That's when you get to the point to where like, okay, I've hit my peaks. I'm scoring 900 and I'm finishing boards. Well, now what? That's when the Syphus form first wise mind, if you will, I think really takes over. It's like, well, now what? Okay, let's see if I can perfect my form. Let's see if I can get better at that. Yeah. And I think that it's got to come after evaluating, and that's also not having a new mind. That's like, okay, where did I start at, and okay, how can I change my thinking based on what I've already done?
And that could completely readjust like what your end game even is, right? Because
Yeah.
like, I mean, to kind of speak from a personal example, I haven't been at this for too awful long. I've just now gotten to the point where I can score in the 600s like quasi regularly,
Yeah.
which isn't awesome. I mean, it's like mid to low mid of the pack at the end of the day. But, you know, I played around with the 45-pound weight for the first time the other day, and I liked how that felt. And I thought, you know, if I can do more to work on strength in some areas and still like challenge myself, and, you know, this ties in nicely to some of these other goals that I have. I'm now no longer as concerned about breaking that 700 mark or that 800 mark right now, right?
Right.
So I went back and I just threw all that out, and I'm just rolling with this other weight now because to me it serves a new purpose. So like, and which is okay.
Well, and again, not to toot my own horn, but that's one of the, I mean, that's one of the great things about Syphus is there's so many different ways to set goals for yourself. Different weight class, okay, different scoring, form, what have you. The competitions we have, March Mayhem or Turf Wars, I'm always trying to give you something to work for. You said that you were chasing 600 or 700, and you kind of put, you kind of put the score as like a secondary goal, or like a different goal for like a later time. Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Because the funny thing is that at first I wasn't even like considering the score. I just wanted to do the movements right and, you know, push myself. And then once scores look, because you know, when you and I would have these conversations before, I think I was in like the mid 4s at the time.
Yes.
So
do you remember what I said to you like our first time?
I've not been at this long myself. My scores are relatively low.
But there is that chance that all of a sudden you start seeing scores increase really, really quickly. That you get hooked. Because I see that happen. Realistically, you could hit that score bug, if you will. It's not until later that you realize, okay, I was chasing that, but hey, it got me in great shape. But that was just interesting for me to hear you talk about it. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe he's not there yet. I mean, he hasn't had that score drug, you know, hit yet. I want to keep an eye on your score. To see how that plays out. Because I don't think to you, like our first time, I'm like, I want to pay attention to your score, because once you start scoring higher.
That's a good point.
I did say that, didn't I?
You did say that, So once like I broke 500 consistently, and then once I started breaking 600 consistently, I could feel that high of wanting to chase the score, but then like there was just an opportunity to play around with a heavier weight because it was just something I was curious about, and then I was like, okay, this feels different. And then I kind of in my mind started working that into other goals that I had for myself. I was like, you know what, the score will come, and I'll just focus on this for now because it fits so nicely into other things I wanted to adjust for myself.
So let me ask you then. So, all right, I feel that intoxication of 500, then 600. Chasing the score for what? You see what I'm saying? For what? Like, why are you chasing the score?
Well, so for me, and I can say this honestly, for me it wasn't, the score was a consequence of me feeling stronger. So like, it was actually pretty nice how well the score correlates with like how well I feel doing the workout. So like, when I started consistently scoring more in the 5s, I could feel it. Like I knew, because I mean, I used to just stare at the board, and I was really mindful of where on the board, because I wouldn't look on the motherboard ahead of time. I would just look at the board and see where on this board is the 500, so I know where to hit, right? But it got to where like I could just
that comes with experience.
So it got to the point where I could say this feels like
that's really knowing your body,
right?
Its potential, and it's also being able to study the board and be able to interpret it, like what's coming up or what, you know, you have to go through to get to 500.
I guess with that, it was less about chasing the number and more about like, I want that 600 feeling, you know, or higher, because it's like, I feel really good coming out of those workouts, I guess.
So I asked you like for what, as like kind of like a play on like, okay, I'm this goal, I want to lose 10 pounds for what? Like what you're saying, like a New Year's resolution. That's kind of what I was asking you, and I just got the answer. You said, because it makes me feel really good to chase the score. All right, then once you hit 900 and you're scoring high, like top 5 all the time, then for what? Like, so what's keeping you going still? You know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah.
really asking you. I'm just asking, like, I feel, okay, so for me, I was able to finish workouts for years. It used to be about strictly the competition factor, and I'm going to smoke this, and I'm going to go all out, and I'm going to feel like I'm just dog tired at the end. I still feel that way, but I score half as high as I used to. To me, it's like flexibility, like things like that like you can't really measure. You can measure it if you're going to take like a sit and reach test or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But you can only really tell how much more flexibility you have once you start doing an exercise that maybe you weren't able to do before.
That challenges that, yeah.
So, but then like, okay, now you're really getting me thinking. So for what? What, Mike? Why are you trying to get flexible? Like what's it for?
Well, and and I can't, in my mind, like you said, I can't answer that because I wouldn't know what it feels like to score 900 or 1,000 yet.
That's not true. Well, you will.
Well, hopefully, knock on whatever this is. But what I can kind of theorize is that once you've got that, to me, I would go backwards with it and say, okay, I've gotten theoretically the most out of the whole thing in terms of score. Now, what can I squeeze out of each little piece of it, right? So like, and that's why I think I'm starting there. Like, I want to squeeze the most out of each movement as I can, and I really want to learn about like why each movement, why each task exists, like what it's meant to engage and what it's meant to do. So like, I get the full effect of that movement, and then I move on to the next movement. So it's not about. So I would imagine like if you've hit that high score, then I would kind of look back and see.
You're saying once you've achieved that score, because that is the same approach that I had. I mean, obviously I was coming up with it and stuff like along the way, and so like the forms weren't even really there until I defined them. But how do I get the most out of this exercise? How do I get the most out of this movement? Is actually because if let's say you get to 900, you're scoring 900s, and then you pay attention to like trying to get the most out of the movements, and you start scoring lower. That's going to get you through the 900s to the thousands, because you're getting more out of it. You're getting stronger. You're getting more flexible. Anyway, so you got me just thinking about.
Yeah, well, and I would be interested to hear from some of the folks that are kind of up in that space more often, because like, to me, it's hard to see this kind of a program plateau. Like, like theoretically, like what even happens? Like you've got the form just right.
Say if you really want to get through like a plateau, or you want to get to the next level of scoring, you should do March Mayhem, because like it'll get anybody through a rut, even if you do just the first round. There's just something about it that just really gets you going. But it's in order to score 800 or higher, maybe 850 or higher, you have to hit this like certain level of almost insanity. Like insanity is the wrong word, but it's like possession. Like you're smelling blood and you're just so focused on finishing the next exercise. But that's where sometimes my mentality nowadays is like, don't let that blind you to the form. Just like skirt.
Yeah, because then you just kind of see ahead. You don't really see what you're doing right now.
Anyways, let's get back to a couple of things. So we kind of addressed like kind of you feel overwhelmed. Like that's one of the reasons why people don't stick with their goals. I want to get to feeling discouraged and you're not really ready to change, because that one I'm really intrigued about, because I have some thoughts too.
All of these concepts are intertwined, obviously. So like the discouragement and the readiness for change, I think reflects on your goal. So like I think that comes back to the example of like if you're significantly overweight and you've led a largely sedentary life and you set goals that aren't realistic, you're setting yourself up for failure and quick discouragement, right? So when we talked about that SMART model, realistic goal planning means something that you can check off a box in a certain period of time that props you up for success and gives you motivation, and then continues to push you forward through it. So I think people, and you can appreciate this just from DBT. It's a lot of people have an all or nothing mentality, right? So the second, right, and I'm guilty of that. I mean, I've yo-yo dieted with the best of them, right? So like the second you do something that breaks that that covenant that you have with yourself, it's over, right? Well, maybe next year. And I think that really informs the discouragement and the readiness for change. I mean, you have to really look at where you're at. Like if you're not ready to drop 50 pounds because you don't have the tools that you need, or you don't have the support that you need, or you know enough about yourself to know that that's not realistic, that's not a bad thing. That's really going to help you out.
That's true. It's almost being realistic about your potential of achieving those goals.
Yeah.
So you're talking about discouraged, or you don't achieve your goals because you feel discouraged. Is that sometimes like a lack of having some kind of positive reinforcement along the way?
It can be.
Okay.
And I think again, I think that comes back to the all or nothing thing, where like you're swinging for the fences or nothing.
Yeah.
So that kind of like robs you of like good positive reinforcement, because it's like, well, what are your measurements for that? So like if you and that's another thing, like ideal goal setting isn't just like this year I will.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're breaking it up into digestible pieces.
Yeah.
And you're visiting, you're looking back at each kind of milestone or marker, and whether it's a week, whether it's a day.
Yeah.
Like if it's a struggle for you not to have pop in a day, and you get through a day without pop, hey, celebrate that, right?
Right.
So yeah.
So this is kind of really breaking it down into the granular.
Yeah.
Let's go with the 2 pounds per week, just metric, just because that's simple. Let's say you want to lose, 20 pounds in 10 weeks. That's your overall goal. You lose, 2, 2, 2, and you're counting it. 0. You're measuring it. It's not all or nothing. You need to be able to like kind of stop yourself at the 5-week mark and be like, well, you know what? I can't get down on myself and be like, this is a disaster. I'm done with it. You got to be able to look back and be like, look at where I've come so far. I'm going to still keep trudging through. I was going to say, like with any goal, you can get discouraged, but you have to be able to see yourself at the midway point or the beginning point and be like realistic about like, hey, I'm still on the trajectory to achieve what it is I've set out to do.
Yeah, well, and I really like, I really advocate for information. So like whether that's people journaling or documenting in some way, or just having good awareness of their situation. So like I would look at not just those things that happened that day that maybe you weren't successful in that goal, but start really analyzing like all the things that really worked on those days where you hit that 2 pounds. Like, I made sure to I had this meal at this time, and I was able to space things out, and I got plenty of movement in. I got my 10,000 steps, and my wife was there, and she was cheering me on the whole time. And maybe that day where you didn't lose the 2, maybe one of those pieces wasn't in place. Maybe it was completely random. But like the more you understand about both your successes and your opportunities, the better off you're going to be. And the idea behind that is you learn something even when you don't hit that goal. So like it's not a loss unless you're just like, well, that's it. I'm screwed and this is over and whatever. Like if you can pull something, if you can learn something from that experience, like, oh God, you know what? That day, I didn't set my alarm. I didn't get up until 10, and I missed my breakfast. And because I missed my breakfast, I ate really crappy at lunch, and then it was just kind of a domino effect.
Yeah. So that's it's all about kind of having a grateful mindset. Really, is what that is kind of having that optimistic point of view. But you just said something that you've said in a few other videos. Like if you wake up all the time and you're like you have that mentality like, oh, Mondays suck. All the time, Mondays are going to suck. It's
priming,
the same thing.
Exactly.
Priming.
It all comes back to priming. Well, and that kind of ties into one of the tools for success for goal planning that we kind of talked about previously, and that's kind of forgiving yourself, right? Like we have this idea that if you don't hit that target just right at that time, shame on you. You screwed up. You're a failure. And we did a whole session on shame versus guilt, right? So you've got to kind of like let that go and know that. And this goes into the treatment world too, that relapse is a part of recovery. Like nobody's going to get it right the first time, no matter what your goals are.
Cultivate true self forgiveness. you need to be able to kind of like truly forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Like what, like if you're had some kind of transgressions in your past that you're trying to forgive yourself for, or if it's not even as bad as that, it's not hitting, not losing the 2 pounds that week that we're discussing. It's not beating yourself up over it, but this ties into into play with like the wise mind and was it rational mind or
okay. So you've got the emotional and rational mind that are on opposite ends, and then you have the wise mind, which is a synthesis of the two.
So if you're not forgiving yourself, that's your
It's kind of
wise.
That's your emotional mind.
Okay.
Because you're stuck in that shame narrative, and it's very like emotionally impulse driven.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that poem or whatever it is that I like wrote, I put on Facebook, and we're not gonna read it, but
okay.
I don't even have it. But it's kind of like the devil and the angel on my shoulder, kind of whispering in my ear. The devil being score, and the angel being form.
Right.
You are absolutely right, and if you have a blend of both, you're going to get the best of the entire workout, because there's that pace factor and there's that form factor. But the reason why I bring this up is because I feel like it's almost better to have a more rational mind than irrational. That sounds obvious, but like discipline I feel like is more important. I think it's more important to override your, not animalistic, but your emotional impulses.
Yeah, I'll say too, though, to challenge you. We went back when we first started talking about goal planning and what it means, right?
Yeah.
Discipline void of emotion is really meaningless too, right? Because if discipline has to be attached to something that's meaningful to you.
Because you wouldn't even have chased it in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Because there has to be that loyalty or that. You got to be committed to something for a reason.
Yes.
And that reason doesn't come from like your front brain. It does.
Right.
You can't rationalize that all the time. It has to be a feeling too.
So emotion. So I love my son, and I want to be there for the next 30, 40 years of his life and see him grow up and have his own kids.
Right.
That's emotion. So that's why I pursue like a healthier lifestyle.
Right. Exactly.
But you wouldn't maybe take that, whatever it is, if you're trying to exercise or what have you, had you not had that emotional connection first. I'm actually more like an emotional, feely type person.
Yeah.
But I really try to override that. Not because I don't want to show emotion. I show emotion, I would say, as much as I can, especially in this like male tough guy society.
That's it's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, no, I know. So I try to, roll up my sleeves and show my scars as much as possible. But I think it's important for me to be rational with my emotions that I'm feeling and be like, no, you're just kind of, being a little too sensitive to this, So I don't know.
And that's kind of the synthesis at work. Like, ideally, each side is keeping the other in check. So, like, if you're making decisions purely with your brain or purely with your gut, the other one's checking and say, "Hey, wait a minute! Like, you think about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't just act on emotion." Or, "Hey, let's don't just do it because somebody's saying it." Like,
this is interesting. I mean, you got me going different ways with it. So, so then I also think about like folks who you would call dub materialistic or strictly like in it for the money.
Yeah.
And then you got people that are kind of doing it for their more like a job for an altruistic purpose. So you could you could apply the same thing as, well, maybe you're trying to provide for your family, and that's based on emotion, and you're not really chasing a materialistic thing. You're chasing. It's okay to want to be successful and have money to provide for your family, because really it's emotion.
Yeah, I mean, there are folks who, and there are people get the wrong impression a lot of times of things.
Right.
And, that becomes a reality unless they engage them and learn different. But and we talked about this a while back too, in terms of what motivates people to perform the way that they do on the turf.
Yeah.
Like maybe that means something different to them than what we can see. So you're right. Like some people, it may look like they're just in pursuit of things and success and notoriety or status or whatever.
Right.
When in fact, like maybe they have a disabled loved one that they're caring for, or maybe they want the best for their kids, or maybe they are just chasing status.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, those people are out there too. So
So, it's just, I don't know. Just thinking about thinking is just so interesting to me.
yeah, and I think to kind of bring it full circle back to even goal planning, right? Like
Yes.
the idea that you're not like in a vacuum and that you don't have to manage either your goals or your problems on your own, that like it actually helps for you to bounce things off of people and have support and have people with shared experience. All of that increases your success.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that applies across the board.
I mean, it probably gives you feedback to, is my goal measurable? Is my, is it realistic? Am I on the right path
Right.
to take advantage of these opportunities that you discussed in achieving my goals?
Yeah, and am I even looking at all that the right way? Because somebody
Yes.
can objectively look at the things that are going on with me in a way that I can't because I have bias. 'Cause
Yes.
it's me and my internal stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe like mucking all this up, and I need somebody to give me a fresh perspective.
And then Syphus training, people will say like, wow, man, I scored really low today.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much the only one that can say like, the reason why everyone scored low today is because the Mogul Madness is not valued high enough. And so everybody really scored probably 50 points higher than they really were supposed to, but nobody knows that. And it's like, so I got to kind of give them that insight. I'm like, it's something to do with the math. Don't worry about it. It's just a minor thing.
Right.
Remember, it's just a not fabricated number, but it's a number that just I came up with.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
And I would say that it works to people's benefits to like have enough insight to seek that information instead of like when we talked about discouragement.
Yeah.
Like they may experience that and just be like, well, crap. I mean, I'm not as good at this as I thought. And,
Right.
you know, what am I even doing wrong? And, you know, they kind of go off on their own like tangents about it. So,
Yeah. Is there anything like kind of like a takeaway that you want to talk about, maybe setting resolutions or goal setting or whatever?
yeah, I'm trying to do things with more intent. Like just be more intentional about things. And I think that that's a good rule of thumb for folks in general. And I don't think that looks just one way for everyone. So I would say that, you know, folks that are maybe in that resolution spirit, really be intentional about like first, you know, we talked about like knowing your story before you write the next chapter. Examine where you were, celebrate the successes you've had, examine the challenge that you've had, and use all that information to kind of craft a sustainable, measurable, specific plan for yourself that can survive not just, you know, the next few weeks or months, but things that are connected to like larger life changes or positive things that increase your motivational intensity for yourself.
Well, I mean, that's perfect. I don't think I need to say anything. I mean, that's bingo. That's
And share that widely with people.
Yeah.
Like don't keep things to yourself. I mean, like have people that hold you accountable, have people that can celebrate with you
Yeah.
when you get things right. Have people that you can commiserate with and kind of bounce ideas off when you have challenges. So, yeah.
That's kind of like a little term that I kind of use quite often in the form videos or something like that.
Yeah.
When you're doing an exercise, be intentional, deliberate, methodical. Those are like kind of terms that I use. Be intentional with your goal setting. Be methodical in your execution. Have intention. I mean, that's really what it is know what your intention is and then be present with that, whatever it is, that action in trying to achieve the goal.
Yeah, and I think a last piece with that's super important. You know, we talked about that forgive yourself piece. Like, celebrate yourself and make your goals positively oriented. Like, we're so focused on deficits. Like,
Yes.
my goal is to take this away or to not do that or to lose this or to stop that, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like, find positive things to bring into your life that motivate you to, and you know, losing some things or not doing some things or stopping some things might be in your objective list to reach that goal, but make your goals positive, because if I look back at a list of things that I'm not supposed to do, that I won't do or don't do or can't do, like that, when we go back to priming, that all takes me back into that negative mentality.
Right.
So like, set yourself up for positivity because you're worth it.